I know I missed this step because I got a little bit ahead of myself trying to troubleshoot. But when you pull this up out, it just simply clips in, pull it out, then you take your coolant line off the bottom and your overflow hose is right there. And then you can, this unclips. It's a little bit of a pain to get it to unclip, but if you get it undone, it makes it much easier, more room, you know. So I got that removed. Now you can simply take and put your power steering reservoir up and out of the way. And down here on the timing cover, right in the middle, you got a 10mm retaining bolt. We're going to want to take and remove that. Alright, once you have that center retaining bolt out of the timing cover, you take and remove this upper portion. Okay guys, now I'm going to take you underneath for a minute. I don't know if you can see that. Well, you see that tube with the two retaining bolts removed from it? That's a drain tube for the turbo. You're going to take and want to remove them. They're two 3/16 cap screws, Allen heads. And then there was a cross piece that went from that drain tube over to, that's a coolant line, this other metal line. I know it's hard to see, but this one here, let's see if I can find that piece for you. Pretty much had a cross piece on it. I took that off. I could actually take and remove this drain tube. So I'm just going to take that and put it out of the way. It's always hard for me to take someone's word. I know they said they troubleshot it, determined it was a head gasket. However, it's just looking really fishy, guys. Because this is an piece of an exhaust gasket that I found wedged up in here. So this head has been off. Another thing, the 4 bolts that hold the turbo to the exhaust manifold, I removed them. I'm going to try to remove the head with the manifold attached to it. Hopefully it'll save me a little bit. There's a bracket that goes up to the exhaust manifold. I'm going to take and remove that retaining nut. As you can see, somebody's had a wrench on that already. Now we want to see what needs to be removed from the turbo, so we could pry it back away from that manifold. Now you probably could flex that metal line. As you can see that bolt right there. Next, just remove all the retaining bolts around the perimeter of this upper mount. I already got the back one removed. Okay. Okay, another good practice, whenever you open something up, seal it off with a rag or something, so if you drop a bolt, don't go down inside of it. That's the tube that went to the intake. Well, went to the intercooler from the turbo. Okay, and then on this lower bracket is 3 retaining bolts, 14mm. Take and remove them, and then remove this bracket. Okay, and then over here you got this cam sensor. It's got 2 10mm retaining bolts. Take and remove that. You can see it's got some kind of magnetic pickup. I'm going to set it over here on the air cleaner. Okay, next I took and lined up the timing marks. You can see the 2 red dots I got. They point straight up. I'll give you a shot. If you have the old timing cover, this one here sitting on there, you got the 2 indicators, one on each side. That's where you line those 2 notches up. I just put the red marks so you can see them a little better. We're going to take and remove the pulleys off the sprockets off the cams. So I took and made some index marks there as well. I don't know if you can see down there on the crank, I also marked that. Prior to loosening up the tensioner, take and break all the retaining bolts loose that hold the cam sprockets on. right down here is an automatic tensioner. You take and loosen that up. It's a 12 millimeter, and pretty much there's an Allen wrench head down there. You take and turn it till all the slack gets in the belt. Then you can take and remove the belt. Hey guys, I thought I had the camera rolling, but evidently I didn't. So I took the top half off. I made a mechanism to hold the cams in line. There's a groove in the back of each cam, a slot that's machined into the back of the cams. Pretty much I made a piece of flat stock with 2 flats on it that bolted to the upper portion. And what that did, that locked the cams in place while I unbolted everything, because you have all your load from your valve springs. So once I had that locked in place, I just proceeded to removing all the retaining bolts for the upper cover, and then just leaving the 3 middle ones or 4 middle ones for last. Popped them out, and then these dowel pins were holding the cover on there pretty good. I pretty much just put a pry bar just to help it along and popped it on the corners, and then that popped up, and simply you just pick it up and the cams pick up after that. So that's where we're at right now. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do another cylinder leak down test. However, my flow gauge on the cylinder leak down kit that I have is no good, so I pretty much just rig this thing up to pretty much do the same thing. So what I'll be doing is putting compressed air into the cylinders. And you know how I like doing bench tests, and I like doing that on something that I don't have a root cause for yet. So I'll just keep on troubleshooting as I go. It might take me a little longer, but when I'm done I'll be confident that the repair was correct. And right now I'm not feeling that. So the coolant system is still sealed. I put air to the coolant system like we were doing before, and I couldn't see anything obvious. What I did notice when I was pulling the retaining bolts off for the upper cover, this one bolt hole shot out water when I unscrewed it. So I proceeded on and I put 15 pounds of air pressure back on it, but I didn't see anything. I didn't see any of that water in that hole move at all. But it got there somehow. So it might be a crack in the head, I'm hoping. But that's the first indication. That's the only first sign that I've seen so far of water while I've been tearing this thing apart. So next I'm going to take and put air to the cylinders, and where I was supplying the air before into the coolant system, I hooked up a gauge, and I'm going to put air to the cylinders and see if this gauge moves at all. Pretty much this is just a hose like you'd use to do a compression check, and you take your Schrader valve out at the bottom because you're going to be putting air down. So I'll just show you on this one cylinder what I'm trying to do. I put a higher pressure gauge on here and a quick connect. Okay, as you can see right now I got about 100 pounds of air pressure. I'll slowly put that to the cylinder. Okay. Now you can hear a lot of leakage, and what you want to do, I noticed that this gauge didn't move at all. Just to show you that is working, if I just squeeze the upper hose a little bit, you can see it moves that needle. So any kind of airflow would show me something, I would think. But just fill around the intake port. I got very little leakage, but I do have some valve seat leakage. Do the same thing on the back exhaust. I don't really feel much there. And repeat that test on each cylinder, and I already did, and I didn't see any hiccup on that gauge whatsoever. Therefore, I'm still shooting in the dark on this one. But I'm going to keep on going. The next step is to yank this head and just see if I see anything obvious. Really wish I would have seen something while performing those tests. While doing the leak down test, what I noticed is cylinders 3 and 4 have a pretty good exhaust valve leak. So it might just be bad seats, burnt valve, maybe even a bent valve. When they put it together, maybe they didn't have it timed correctly. Or when they lap the valves, they're just not seating that good. But I do have pretty good leakage on cylinders 3 and 4. I mean, it's not real bad, but it's bad enough where it got my attention. And the rest of the cylinders didn't test that bad, you know? So I was hoping to see some kind of fluctuation when I put air into the cylinders. However, I didn't even see a hiccup. So let's proceed on to pulling the head. I'm going to take and zip out the head bolts. Okay, I took and I broke them all loose with the breaker bar. I'm just going to zip them out. Wow, look at that. That's oil and water mixed. What the hell is that doing there? Now remember that, guys, that came right from that, near that number 1 cylinder. See that milky color? That's oil and water. Okay, well that's the first indication I got of oil and water being mixed since I started working on this, and it's on a head bolt. Now why would it be there? These bolts came out of the number 1 cylinder. I'm going to lay them out exactly the way I found them, the way I pulled them. See, at times you kind of feel like Inspector Gadget, because you gotta look at all these clues that they're giving you and try to put the pieces together. Okay, so the head bolt's out. Okay, he's loose. Alright guys, I don't know how good you can see down there. There was a retaining bolt going through the center timing cover into the cylinder head. You got to remove that. I had a visitor, so I had to take advantage of it while he was here to give me a hand lifting the head off. What I ran into, there was one coolant tube I missed, so there was 2 10mm head retaining bolts, and that freed that coolant tube up on the back side of the head, right behind the exhaust cam down low. And over here was another coolant tube, this one here, and that was about it. That was all I missed. And I just was able to get underneath this one corner, give it a little pop with a pry bar, and it popped off the dowels, and I lifted it up and out. This is that tube, the 2 retaining bolts. I got the head over at the bench. Right now it's sitting upside down. This is how it was sitting. This on the passenger side for the upper hose. So, now you got a good idea. These were the 2 retaining bolts I missed for that tube in the back. And over here is the hose I missed on the driver's side. Other than that, she came right out. I'm going to see if I can find a machine shop that's capable of doing a thorough check on this head. It's either a head or a cylinder wall. This one has water jackets along each cylinder, and it's aluminum block, so that's a possibility as well. But we have to start somewhere. So if I could find a machine shop to check this for me, that'd be great. I could bench test it myself, but what I'd have to do is get a nice straight piece of like 1/2 inch steel and use this head gasket as a template just for the head bolts. And pretty much what I do is place the gasket on there and take that flat piece of steel. Everything else should be blocked off, blanked, all the coolant passages. Leave the spark plugs out and actually torque that flat plate. It has to be precision squared and like I said, around a 1/2 inch thick. And you torque it on, actually bolt it on like the surface of the block, and then you can actually pressure test the head, because now you have all the coolant passages blocked. So I would just simply cap this side or cap the thermostat housing side, put a blank on it, and actually put air pressure to it, see if it holds. If it has a minimal leak, then you would pretty much put it in a bucket of water or a tub and look for the bubbles. I found them that way. It's just a lot of work, and machine shops usually have the proper plates ready and made for just this reason. But that's how they do it to find the internal. The MagnaFlux, that's just a spray. It's like a 3-step process, and I can find surface scratches and cracks. However, the internal ones I'd be worried about. That's where I think it's at on this one. But I'm getting tired, it's getting late, so we'll start again tomorrow.